Right. So Unit 17, practice activities and tasks for language and skills development. We've been talking about a lot of activities back in the Unit 15 and Unit 16. Now we are going to specially see into the activities. What are practice activities and tasks for language and skills development? These are activities and tasks designed to give learners opportunities to practice and extend. Practice and extend mean what you are doing additionally with that, some more things which you do, extend their use of language, such as new vocabulary, functional exponent, or grammatical structure, or of the sub-skills of reading, listening, speaking, and writing. So activities we do what for? You know, vocabulary, lexis is an important feature of the language learning. Functional exponents, function is also used, practical use of the language is an important feature. Grammatical structure, grammar. So these three are the areas main the way we learn language: grammar, vocabulary, and function. So these three things, when we want to teach language also, we have to portion wise teach from all these. Okay. Then in the Unit 15, we discuss about different approaches for the teaching, where for some approaches are grammatical point of view, some approaches are functional point of view, some approaches are, you know, lexical point of view, and some approaches are mixture of all that. Some approaches are over there in the Unit 15 for the small children, like TPR. So then some of the approaches we cannot use alone. We have to make it part of another approach. And then in the end comes how we combine all that and teach, because that is the latest approach. So in those approaches, we've been talking about activities. So most of the time we were saying restricted activities, we were saying restricted conditions, we were saying control practice activities, or we will say control condition or control activities. That's what we are going to discuss. What are the difference in those activities? Okay, so this unit is especially focusing on the activities. Plus, these activities we do when we are teaching vocabulary, function, or grammar, or sub-skills like reading, listening, speaking, and writing. So we utilize these activities in order to make students understand or to extend their knowledge in the language. So these are the purposes of it. Okay, right. Now, if you see the first table here, activity 1, activity 2, activity 3. The other three types of activity. First one, you just see, complete these sentences about yourself with can or can't. So only you have got two options here, can or can't. So if you see, fill in the blanks activities there. Now this activity is called what? It is a control or restricted practice activity. Why we call it control or restricted? Because the student does not have enough freedom for using the language. We have restricted the student for this particular activity to use only 1 or 2 words. So they don't have the freedom of using these words, the language freely. That's why we call it control practice activity or restricted practice activity. For example, learners can only use certain items of language. So what happens? What's the benefit of this kind of activity? It gives students practice in using language accurately. Now, definitely when they are going to use not a lot of things in the language, they are focusing only on the two part of can and can't. So definitely they will learn it much better way. In this way, how to use can and how to use can't or can't. Okay, so this is what it is, the the output of it. When we want students to be accurate at a particular part of language, we ask them to do the control practice activity. So whenever we teach grammar or any other thing in the structure, the best activities are these. Is an exercise like it focuses on the form of the language, and along with that, fill in the blanks. Control practice activities, like you might have seen there, you just check it, they will give you the list what type of activities are called control practice activity. It's not only this fill in the blanks one, okay? There is yes and no one also, there is true and false also. Multiple choice also comes out in that control. Why? Because you don't have much option there to use. Right. Is it clear? Number one? Okay. So the next one is activity 2. Write an email to language school asking them about their courses. Find out when the courses are, what the courses are about, how much they cost, how long the courses are. Now these two things are what you want to check in it is you are writing to an institute asking about their courses. Now you have given kind of freedom here to ask from them. So language you can use, but you have to restrict your language to these particular topics which they have asked you to ask from them. So somewhat the student have the freedom, but not all, okay? Somewhat they are bound also. They have limited options to use, or compared to the activity 1, they have much better options regarding the language use. But if you compare to activity 3, like write an email to a friend asking them to come on holiday with you this summer. So it's a very free kind of activity. You can write the mail whatever way you want. They have not given you any kind of restriction over there. So these two ones are called, like you see, activity number 2 is a less control or freer practice activity. An activity in which learners have some choice over what language they use. Give students, now the benefit of it is what? It gives students practice in using language accurately. And the same one is here also, give student practice in using language accurately. Okay. So here also language accuracy is there because they have restricted you somewhat. Is a task an activity with a real world outcome. Now why we say with a real world outcome? Because it is like practically used. Now if you see the other side one is practically not used, but this one is something which you utilize in the common social life, and an outcome is there of it. You are writing to an institute asking the information from them. Activity number 3 is a free activity. Give students practice in communicating. It's a task. So this is the communication practice. Now if you remember, whenever we do the communication practice, we go by fluency. We don't go by accuracy. Do you remember that, Sujika?
Yes, sir.
We talk about that, and I think that's the question you had asked me.
Yes, sir.
So here in the activity 3, writing an email also is a kind of communicating activity. You got it? And is a task given to write, so the freedom is there, whatever way you want to write, write it. So this is what is all. The first one is restricted or control. The second one is less control and freer practice. And the third one is free activity. Is it clear? Any kind of question? Right. So now we will go further. Speaking and writing activities can be categorized according to how much they control students' use of language. Now, if you see free, controlled, and freer, control, and freer. Now we will go to the next page and we will try to see the benefit and the drawbacks of these activities. Plus, we have to see where we can use in the classroom for what type of students, which kind of activities and are beneficial. Okay, so we are going to discuss those things. When I'm doing face-to-face class, so then I'm not reading like this. I ask one of the participants to read this particular paragraph. When she reads, then I explain it. So I get a bit rest. But in the online classes, I have to read also and I have to explain also. And you people are easily just listening. But when it's practical face-to-face class, then I take a bit rest by asking them to read it. So let's see what's the next. Each category of activity has a different focus and purpose and uses different activities types. Each category, different uses, different purposes. Okay. Number one, control activities give student repeated practice in accuracy, which we discussed already, and the form of language. So it gives practice in accuracy and form of language. These are the points which you people have to note it down with you. Okay, you can underline it whatever way, and later on you make your notes on it to categorizing activities accordingly, and allow them to make few mistakes. Mistakes are less when you have one or two choices to use, then definitely you are going to do mistakes less. That's why they say don't speak a lot. When you speak a lot, you will do more mistakes. So speak less. So reason is when you use more language, you tend to do mistakes in that. They are mostly used to guide student in using form of target language. Some example of control activities are copying words, sentences. Now these are the further control practice activities. They are giving you the a variety of it, which you can underline and check it. What are these type of activity and how they are done in the class. So it will be helpful for you not only in the examination point of view, but also as a teacher, your knowledge that what are these activity called and why we do that in the class. Because most of the time teachers are doing these activity, but they don't know why we are doing it. They say give practice. Okay, practice in what? This practice is focusing on what area of the language, for what type of area of language these are suitable. Okay, and the age group of the student also need to be checked and their level. So all these things need to be considered. Okay, so here you see the types of it are copying words or sentences. Jazz chants, you need to know what is it. I'm not explaining these one because it's simply definition you can find in the glossary and you need to go through that. Drills like guided repetition. Drills are guided repetition guided by the teacher. So, and they are repeating. In drill, students can either repeat some model language as a class like choral drills, or an individual drills, or replace a keyword in given sentence, substitutional drills. So you need to know all these different types of drill and what type of activities these are. You need to be very clear about it. You can find that in the glossary, and if not, you can check it in Google it, and you will have the type of activities plus example as well. And use new words to create sentence with different structures. Transformation drill. So different types of drills are there. Okay, and drills are mostly done in the control practice activities. And the purpose is to make the structure, accuracy of form of the language. Then comes to the free activities, which was on the previous page we discussed in the number 3. So here they have given explanation number 2. All right, so only the paragraphs are up and down, the rest is the same thing. Free, which we discussed on number 3 activity on the previous page. By contrast, mean opposite, allow students to use whatever language they wish in order to complete a task. Now, we discussed the above one control practice activity. Here, the students are controlled to use the language. But by contrast, opposite, totally opposite of it is the free activity, in which what happens? It allows students to use whatever language they wish in order to complete a task. In free activities, the teacher may not be able to predict what language the student will use, and so can't use these activities to give practice in specific language. Why? Because you cannot predict what type of language student will be using, because it's an open option. So it's up to them what they are saying, what's the vocabulary they are using, okay, how they are expressing themselves. These activities focus on fluency, giving students practice in recalling and joining together the language they know and giving them opportunities to try to interact and communicate. All right. So here is the fluency. Focus is fluency. And definitely when you are focusing in fluency, so we do not give priority to accuracy. So that's why it is opposite of the control one. There our focus is on accuracy. Here our focus is on fluency. Now the types of activities which we can do in these ones: discussions in the class, problem solving activities, sharing and comparing ideas, brainstorming, information and experiences, like somebody has an information they are passing on to the next, or somebody's talking about their experiences about something. So all that is part of it. Rank ordering, prioritizing, putting a list of things in order to its importance, writing emails, stories, letters, invitations, compositions, are all example of free activities. Is that clear? Sujika? All right. Okay, fine. The next one is between control and free activities are freer. The one which was on the second that we will be discussing. Freer are somewhat option they have. Okay, that's what is the nature of those activities. Freer activities in which the teachers can predict to some extent what language the student will need to use. For example, you can see that an activity 2 above, the students will need to use question forms. So the activity provides practice of question forms, but the students will also use other language which is not so predictable to complete the mail. Now the question form, why? Because they have given a series of questions to ask from the institute that information. So definitely for that they have to use question. But after the question, further explanation, they are explaining themselves, so they have the option in that explanation to use language freely. That is why we call it freer activity. Okay, right. Examples of freer activities are like role plays. Okay, in the role plays, like you ask a person that, okay, you are acting in this way, so they are bound to do the acting in that particular way, but then how they are expressing themselves, that is the free area of that. Okay, information gap activities, sentence completion, gap fills, surveys, these are the types of it. Further, we can see that control activities give students lots of guidance and support in using language accurately. Freer activities give a little less guidance and support, and free activities do not give students guidance and support in the language they use. This is the whole thing they have given a summarized in these 3 lines all these 3 activities and the things which we discussed up there. Next, it is not always possible to categorize activities as control, free and freer and free, as it depends on how the teacher uses them. And let's take role play, for example. A teacher could put students in pairs and ask them to reproduce a dialogue they have just heard on a recording. This would be a control activity. At the end of the lesson, on asking for giving personal information, students could do a role play in which they meet a new person at a party, have a find out. Well, anyhow, this is the explanation of that how you do as a teacher these activity in the classroom. So there is nothing to explain in it. You can easily understand when you go through that. We will be trying to see where these are further. There are also many activities and tasks that are commonly used to develop reading and listening skills. Now, there we talk about the main language. Here they are giving you the reading and listening skills, the receptive and productive skills, which we have discussed before. When you are doing those, so these are the types of activities they have mentioned. You can go to the table and see when you are doing the improvement of the sub skills, then what type of things you can do in the class. We will be discussing key concept. This is the continuity of the activities for the sub skills. Okay, you can make a list of it. What for the language accuracy and forms, what type of activity, for the communication and fluency, what type of activity, for the sub skills reading, listening, or reading or writing, what type of activities, so that you can make a list of it. Because these 3 mostly they will be asking the question that a teacher is doing this kind of activity, role play is going on, okay, and in the role play the students are doing in this way. They are asking that this is, they will give you some options. Here the teacher is doing what is the focus of the teacher over here. The students are practicing what, so they will give you some options. So in order to understand those questions, you people need to know that what type of activities are used for what kind of purpose. That's what you have to make list out of it. I'm telling you, underline it, make your notes out of it. So especially 15, 16 and 17. Okay, right. So point number 1, when selecting activities for practicing and developing language, it's up to the teacher to decide whether to do a controlled practice, freer or free activity, or an activity that focus on accuracy of communication. The choice will be depend on students' needs and preferences. Now, how to select an activity? It is exclusively is the choice of the teacher. The teacher can select that based on the needs and preferences of the student. Whether you have to do free, freer or controlled activity. Okay, depends. If you want more accuracy in the language, better to do controlled one. But if you feel that somewhat they can use language, then you give freer. And if you feel they need to improve their fluency in communication, give free activities. When choosing activities and tasks for developing skills, the teacher can decide which skill and sub-skills to focus on. Again, students' needs and preferences should help us to make that choice. It depends the students' needs and preferences, what they are going to learn. Teacher has to adjust the activities accordingly. All right, that's the easiest formula. Using several kinds of activities in our lesson adds variety. This helps us to keep lesson more interesting. And on other side, why we add activities? Because it gives variety to our lesson. So the student, they don't become bored. They get, and our lessons are more interesting for them. Okay, because we are not teaching all in one way, right? Activities in lessons are usually linked so that the first one leads into the helps the next, etc. There are several different ways of linking activities in lessons. These are just some of them. Now, activities we are linking to the lessons. How it works, like presentation, control, practice activity. When we do presentation of the language, we are trying to teach the language or presenting something. Better to do the control practice activity after that. And then after that, freer activities. Lead in, task, presentation further. Now, lead in activities, as we have discussed, it comes before. You will have the worksheet. In the worksheet, these are explained to you, okay? Which you can make that activity types like now, okay, here it is coming. We will talk about that also. There are three types of activity which we do in the beginning of starting the lesson. Okay, one is called warm-up, other is called icebreaker, the third called lead-in. So we are going to talk about it actually what they are. Skills-based lesson. Okay, warm-up and or lead-in, comprehension activities, tasks, post-task activities. Comprehension activities for listening and reading often start by focusing on more general levels of comprehension. The move on the sub-skills involve detail or specific attention to the text, then to a focus on language and use of the text. Sujika, have we done the?
Yes.
Have we done these activities? Which are the three types?
Warmer and leading.
Yeah.
Those. Yes, I remember. I think we did.
No, you should not be thinking. You should be confirming me. You just check it whether we have done it. Anyone else, if you remember?
Yes.
Where warmer is done to energize the class. Leading is done, which is relating an activity what you are going to teach in the class. And icebreaker is an activity where the new students are there and they are not familiarized with each other. So you introduce them to each other. These are the three types. Have I done it with you?
So you explained them, sir.
All right. So is it clear to you people?
Yeah.
Anyone has a doubt about it? Madhu? Kumarika, Gimhani? These three types of. So if you remember that one, then you can understand this, what they are supposed to do. So here they are giving you the sequence of it. Like after presentation, control practice activities, better you do. Presentation means you taught a lesson about the language. Now you want to give them the activity. So control practice. Or you can go to the free practice activities. Now lead-in activities are the one which is dealing with the topic. Related to the topic, an activity you do similar kind of, so just to make them understand that this is what they are going to do in detail. So then after that you can give a task to them, and after giving a task you can do the presentation of language. Mean how it happens? This happens like, you know, first you give an example of the language, then you give some kind of task to do them, and after that you come to the language, which is like mostly TBL method. Remind yourself, unit 17, not 17, unit 16, I think we discussed that, right? The TBL method, how they do it. They come to the presentation of language in the end. Just start with the task. Okay. So that's the method they are discussing over here. But anyhow, not to get confused with this, just keep focus on it, what you're supposed to do. You need to know these three types of activities. Then what are the tasks? Now activity and task. Activity is a main thing. Now in that, different types of tasks are there. Like you see choral drill, you see that individual drill, you see that substitutional drill. All these are the different tasks. So activity is one, that is control practice. But under that, different types of tasks you do. So do not confuse activity with the task. Okay. These two are two different names, two different things. Like activities is the main one. Tasks are different other things which you do under an activity. So tasks can be different, but it should be dealing with the one area, control practice activity. Likewise, less control practice activity. So there will be different tasks which you do in that. Okay. So that's what, never to try to clarify this thing, never get confused with the activity and the task. Tasks are a lot, activities are particular areas of that. Let's see what's on the next page. Is that point clear to you? Tasks and activities?
Yes, sir.
Because mostly we are taking it in the same way, similar kind of meaning we are taking it, but it is not. These are two different things. Right. So example one, listening skill lesson. Now when you are going to do listening one, these are sub skills. What do you do in that? Lead in. Why lead in the listening? Because to give them then an idea what type of activity you are going to do in the listening. So lead in activity you need to do. Right. Discussing the topic of the listening and learning any important new vocabulary. So what happens in that? You discuss that in the lead in, what type of listening they are going to do and what kind of vocabulary they will face in that. Comprehension task mean understanding that thing comes after it. First is the discussion to make their mind clear about it. Listening to recorded conversation and answering multiple choice guess question about it. Then listening to the conversation again, and because usually twice they are playing the listening part activity. It is not once. In the IELTS test, it is once, but the rest of the Cambridge all test listening part is played twice. Right. So that's why they are saying second time. Okay. Conversation again and completing form of the specific information. Post-task activities, brief discussion of the topic of the conversation. So this is how the listening thing happens. It's not just to put the CD and finish. No, before starting the CD, you need to discuss lead-in activity with them. Similarity of that should be what they are going to listen. So it means the teacher needs to know what type of listening activity is this. So how will the teacher need to know? Once the teacher has listened that before practicing with the class, then she gets to know, okay, this is what is the topic, this type of task is there, and this type of activity they have to do in it. Task they have to do, and then they have to use this vocabulary. Then some lead-in kind of activity the teachers does before starting that. Then they listen to it. Then they listen second time. Then they do the question, multiple choice question by focusing that what they are asked in it. And after finishing in that, in the end, you discuss what they did, what they supposed to do that, how was the performance in that, what they were lacking in it. So do the discussion based on that. So this is how you do the listening skills practice. Next one is a topic-based skills lesson. Lead in, speaking about the topic and doing related language work. So there is a topic you are going to give. So you first start discussing about that topic, and listening to a recording about the topic. Then you put the listening recording about, read a text about the topic, and then they start, there is a text which is about the topic, is you read about it, or students read. Post-task activity, discuss the topic and focus on the language of the topic. Then you discuss what they did and find out the language focus, what was there. Was it a practice of passive voice? Was it a practice of particular tense? Was it a practice of particular form of the language? What was that? So you can focus on that and discuss with them. This is an integrated skill lesson. For example, lesson to involve working variety. So that's it. These things, follow-up activity, you see that these different types of task, brainstorming, what is it, sentence completion, extension task, making mind maps, surveys, visualization, categorization, problem solving, mingling. Now all these different types of things which we do, you have to match with this. This is how you will be tested in the paper regarding it. Okay, so you need to know what it is. Are you people doing this activity, follow-up activities?
Yes, sir.
Okay, only Madhu is doing, or anybody else is doing? Sujika, Gimhani, are you people doing this activity? Nisha, Gomi, Odari, Nadira?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Follow-up activity
Yes,
you have to do. Along with the
Okay.
end of the lesson, the other one, which is the TKT practice task, that plus the follow-up activity. Okay, so it will give you understanding that what you already discussed in the topic. All right.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, can you explain skill-based lessons and topic-based skill lessons again? So I have a doubt.
Skills-based lesson. Who is asking?
Madhubhashi.
Kaduma kau da kaza karenge. Madhubhashi.
Oh, skill-based lessons and
Skills-based
topic-based.
lesson is like this, Madhubhashini, like skills. What are the skills of language?
Reading skills,
Reading, writing, listening, speaking.
Yes.
So when we are doing the skill practice, lesson is based on you are doing a listening activity or you are doing a reading activity. Okay. So these are, you are building up skills base, which is apart from the grammar and different from this vocabulary and all that. These ones are different. Okay. That is called skill base. What else is there?
Topic-based skill lessons.
Topic based mean for the skill you have a different topic you have taken, like for example reading comprehension is there. Okay, so topic based mean there is a topic for that particular sub skills. Thank you, Gulini. I was just coming for that. Okay, so I will get a 5 minutes break. We'll have a cup of tea and then I'm coming back to do the last one. Okay, all right.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
So, although Tilini has made me a cup of tea, God bless her, but I need a little bit break. Okay. Are you people there? Nisha, Gomi? Sujika?
So I'm here.
All right. So we will go to Unit 18. Harida,
Yes.
that is how you say in Sinhala. Harida, Hare. Fine. So where were we? All are there?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
All right. Nadira, Udari, Gimhani.
Yes, sir.
That boys are not there, no man.
Yes.
They are not so serious about it. Assessment types and tasks. It's not a difficult topic. It's compared to 15, 16, 17 are very technical. Okay. This one is dealing with the assessment, how we take the test and what types are there. So it's just straightforward. There is nothing twisting in it. What are assessment types and tasks? Assessment mean judging learners' performance by collecting information about it. We assess learners for different reasons. Now, what is assessment? When we judge a learner, that how they perform, that is called assessment. Okay? Commonly we say checking them. So professionally or formal way you say assessing. We assess learners for different reasons, using different methods to do so. Assessment tasks are the tasks we use for assessing learners. Then we use assessing tasks in order to assess them. And that task we will be talking about. We can assess learners informally or formally. So now though there are two types. One is formal assessment, one is informal assessment. Informal assessment is when we observe learners to see how well they are doing something and then often give them comments on their performance. Informal assessment is when we don't give test or paper, marks or grades, but we just observe them and then we tell them feedback, give that how the performance was. Was it good? You need to improve, or this orally you say. So we observe learners to see how well they are doing something, then often give them comments on their performance. So we comment on their performance. Formal assessment is when we assess learners through tests or exams and give their work a mark or grade. Is this clear? Formal assessment, informal assessment? All right. So now we will go and see the tasks different ways. There are several reasons why we might want to assess learners formally. Now we will first talk formal assessment. These are. At the beginning of a course, we might give them a test to find out, diagnose what they know and what don't know. This is called diagnostic test. The information from this type of test help us to decide what to teach and what learner need to help in which areas of language. So when they want to start a course and we don't know what's their level, so we give them a test in order to understand what they know and what they don't. That is called diagnostic test. Okay, is that clear? Diagnostic test?
Yes, sir.
All right, the next one is when learners go to a language school or evening class, the school may want to know what level the learners are at. So they give them a test. This is called a placement test. We use the information from placement test in order to decide what level of the class learners should. Now Sujika will tell me what's the difference between diagnostic test and placement test.
Means when a new student is coming to a class, then we are taking the placement test.
Okay.
Then diagnosis test means
Then diagnostic test come over
while no.
Madhu.
Diagnostic test, then we know what students know and what students don't know.
Okay.
Then we can decide which one we can plan what the course that they want.
What we need to teach them. Okay, what they need to be taught and how much they know and how much they don't, right? That is diagnostic. Now tell me the difference between diagnostic and placement test. Anyone?
So I think it's in the objective of the test and probably the structure as well, because in the diagnostic test, you're trying to see what they don't know, whereas in the placement test, you're trying to see to which level of, if you have different classes like beginner, intermediate, advanced, to which class that you're going to put the student in. So the diagnostic test is more individual. You get a more, the feedback you get is in that particular, say in the beginners class, what should you touch on more? Whereas in the placement test, you will realize whether the child is a beginner or intermediate or advanced student.
Somewhat okay, but you muddle up in the end. First, you are coming very to the point, and in the end, you just muddle up the things.
Okay, sir.
All right. Okay, Sachi, it is what you said to the extent the diagnostic test is like generally we want to know how much language a student know and how much they don't. Okay?
Okay, sir.
When it comes to the placement test, now, for example, I'm running an institute and I have a particular course for the business level or for the spoken English. Okay? Then what I do, I have put that spoken English course or the business language course in 2, 3, 4, 5, for example, 5 levels I have put it. They have to complete the whole course by following the 5 levels. Now, for that 5 levels, I keep a placement test. That if a student comes to me, when they do the test out of these 5 levels, then I have to see which level I can put the student. Are you getting my point?
Yes, sir.
But diagnostic test is a kind of generally want to know what's the level of the student. Is it intermediate, it's basic, or it's upper intermediate, okay? Or is it advanced? So in which kind of thing, what kind of level they have of the language. Are you getting the point? But the placement test is for a particular course at an institute. There might be higher level course than that. There might be different other, but what course we have prepared for our students, we are targeting a particular student. So for them, we have put up 3-level course or 5-level course. And then we take the test only for these levels, not for the whole English. Are you getting the point?
Yes, sir.
I don't think.
Miss, I got it.
Got it?
Yes.
So it is not the test out of the whole English. It is only for that particular levels which an institute is offering. For example, they are offering a course for the housewives. So it is not from the whole English. It is a particular communication course. They are offering a course for, you know, a summer camp is there. 3 months course is there for the student in the holidays. Or they are offering a course for business students. Or they are offering a course for the medical students. Or they are offering a course for the university entrance. Okay. So these are particular courses dealing with one part of the language, not as a whole language. So that's why we call it placement test. You need to be placed at a particular level for that course. But whereas the diagnostic test is, you give this test to see how much a student, a person knows about as a whole about the language. All right, that's the basic difference. Sujika, is it clear?
Yes, so tell me, where do we use this diagnostic test? The placement test is okay. Then which places do we use this test?
Generally. For example, somebody have the knowledge of language and they cannot, they haven't taken any test like, you know, recognized kind of test of the Cambridge. Now the Cambridge test or world level, they have a recognition and scale. Okay, so if I have, for example, done CAE, Cambridge Advanced English, so my English language, that certificate, it is C1 or C2 level I have obtained in it. Depends on the marks I have got in it. So if it is 200 more, I will be placed in C2 level. If it is below 200, I will be placed in C1 level. Now C1 and C2 level already are recognized. Okay, but if somebody has done a graduation in English language, or having exposure to the English language, or have done some kind of courses in it, but not world internationally recognized with the international scale, then they need to check what's their level, because level is not recognized. Are you getting my point?
Yes, I got it. Thank you.
Yeah, so when you have not followed a recognized world level scale course, that your level comes in a proper international scale, then you need to take it to see what level English you have. Okay, it's for that reason. Sachi, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes sir, don't say. When you say yes sir, I get confused again.
Okay, sir. Yes.
You say yes, it's clear. Once you put there, then I get confused. It means that still she's thinking whether it is to take it is a yes or no, or half. All right, so number 3, after we have finished teaching a part of course, we may want to find out how well learners have learned it. Now try to understand this. We are teaching a course, and a part of that we have covered, and we want to know how well they have learned that particular part which is taught to them up to this date. Okay, a test for this purpose is called progress test. A progress test looks back over a recent block of syllabus. For example, unit from a course book, to see how well the learners have learned what it covered. We use the information from the test to decide if we need to do more work on this area of the syllabus or not, and perhaps to give learners feedback on their strengths and difficulties in this area. Using information from assessment to feed into our teaching and may give learners feedback is called formative assessment. So formative assessment also keep in mind. It will come further what it is. Now what happens in the progress test, what we call the progress test in the school?
Term test.
Term test.
Term test. Why? Because it's not the whole course syllabus they have covered. Part of that they have covered. Some school they have midterm test also, which is after 1.5 months they take. Then they take the term test. So these are all progress. They check the progress. Okay, and it comes in the formative assessment. We will discuss this further also. No worries about it. Next one is, some teachers prefer not to assess their learner progress in terms through tests, but through pieces of work given throughout the term. They might set a composition in week 2, for instance, a presentation in week 4, an essay in week 6, etc. Then base the learner's final mark on the average mark for the piece of work. Some teachers think that this method of assessment, continuous assessment, it is continuous assessment they call it, gives a truer picture of how well the learners have learned and is less threatening and more formative than an end of course exam. In young learners classes, this form of assessment is sometimes called class-based assessment. Now what happens here? They don't wait till to take the test in the end of the term. So they assess their performance. Like they keep different types of tasks weekly basis or 2-week basis, and they test their performance So sometimes they call it continuous assessment. And in the young learners, they call it classroom-based assessment, where they check the assessment is going on continuously the way they are learning. So the students also keep that in mind, okay, they are assessed, so they don't get lousy on the topic, on the learning. Like if you see in Sri Lanka, commonly, not in only in Sri Lanka, all South Asian, this is the style. In the end of the year, they take tests. So the whole year they are just ha-hoo. In the end, then the exam is coming up the last month. Everyone is just into the studies. The whole world, they can't see anything around. You know. So what happens in that, when the exam assessment is done every month, and in the end it will be collected, then definitely they will take serious the learning throughout the year. That's what is the idea behind the continuous assessment, or in the junior section we call it classroom-based assessment. In another, it comes further, another way of assessing learners' work throughout. Now we are talking about the throughout assessment, okay, continuous. There is another way which is called portfolio. Have you heard about portfolio? Anyone?
No, sir.
Yes.
Sujika? Sachi?
I didn't hear.
Yes, sir. It's like a collection of work.
Yeah, and which is throughout, it's done by the student itself. Okay. So what happens in that, this is a collection of learners' work done during the course, which the learner puts together during or at the end of course and then present to the teacher. And here in our South Asian style, we don't have that, but in the Western one, they have. Portfolios are important. You have to put up your portfolio with that, and that is part of the assessment. It has to be done, and the whole year work is done there. The student is keeping the record of it. Often it is also contains comments on the work written by the learners or classmates. Sometimes there might be classmates, they might have done the peer check, and they might have given comments on that particular work of a student. Okay, so portfolio we call it. But anyhow, in our education system, it's not there. Like continuous assessment, portfolio let learners produce work on an area just after it has been taught. Putting the portfolio together can also be an opportunity for the learners to revise and improve their work. The portfolio might contain, for example, different kinds of writing, the results of a project, or recordings. For example, a video of an interview or a presentation. All right. So different types of things might be included in it. Just the whole year project work is there in it, which is then for the teacher it's difficult because the teacher has to go through the whole year work of while going through the portfolio. So the work is a lot for the teacher to assess because she has to or he has to do the assessment. So portfolio is also kind of continuous assessment, which continues throughout the year for the whole course. Number 5, at the end of a term or a course, we may give learners a test to see how well they have learned the content of the whole course. This kind of assessment is called an achievement test or summative test, which is in the end of the course. Learners usually receive a score or a mark from this kind of testing. Achievement test or summative test. We call it annual test also, okay, which is in the end of the course and where they get the score or marks which we give to them, how much they have achieved in it. Number 6, sometimes learners take tests to see how good they are at language. Sachi, Sujika, this question is coming. You have to keep in mind again, and you have to tell me. This kind of test is called a proficiency test. The content of the test are not based on a course or syllabus that the learner has followed. The test measure the learner's general skills and ability in the language as a whole. For example, the IELTS test or use of it. For example, English for nurses. Now you people have to tell me what's the difference between proficiency test and diagnostic test. It is to all. Madhu, Sachi, Sujika, Nisha Gomi, Gimhani. Gimhani, you are very quiet today. Can you hear me? Gimhani?
Proficiency test, we don't consider the requirement for the course, but in diagnostic one, then we have to think of what they know and what they don't know regarding the course they are going to follow.
Say it again a little bit in short.
In diagnostic test, we just we have to test what they know and what they don't know regarding the course.
All right.
But in proficiency test, we don't consider about the course, but we have to test overall things regardless of the course they are going to.
One thing you are missing in it. The two things which you have mentioned is correct. One thing you are missing, which is the important thing. You mentioned they regardless of the courses or syllabuses, that is fine. Or you have to test them, that is fine. But then what's the difference it's making with the diagnostic test? That point is not clear.
In diagnostic test, we think of the strength and weakness of the students.
Okay.
And
Then in this one, proficiency
we are
test.
going to check their strength and weakness.
So what's the difference? Muka the difference eka? Sachi?
So basically, I think the proficiency test is you're not trying to place them somewhere, and you're not trying to help them learn or to correct them. It's just to check if they have a particular level of English for a particular task. I guess, for example, IELTS is to go abroad.
Sachi,
so yeah.
You are giving me answer from your common sense, not from the knowledge point of view.
Okay, sir. So it says that
you use your common sense out of it, and you are giving me answer.
The proficiency test, we just check the general skills of the learners.
All right. Now, Sachi, you can be a good compare. Okay. You can do that kind of job. Kind of presenter somewhere. For that kind of thing, you might be okay. Right. Actually, the thing is, in the diagnostic test, we check how much a student know or does not know. Okay? But in the proficiency test, we check how good they are at language. Terenava?
Yes, sir.
Sachi?
Yes, I get it.
You got it?
Yes.
We are checking their best performance in the language in the proficiency test. Proficiency test mean how proficient you are in the language. What is your understanding level in that? Not how much you know or how much you don't know. So have to start teaching you from that. No, in the proficiency test, you prepare yourself from the basic up to the advanced. And then you perform there to see what's your level. Getting the point? Like if you prepare yourself for the IELTS test, why they have given you the example of IELTS. So in IELTS test, they will teach you from basic up to the advanced level. And then you will be tested there. And then we'll see by after teaching up to the advanced level, your understanding in this language, it is the current understanding of your language is what level. Then they have a scale there, 6, 6.5, 7, 7.5, 8 is the best score, 8.5 is the proficiency score, okay, 9 and 8.5. So that is how they categorize your performance, that how efficient you are at language. Is that clear? But diagnostic does not teach you the whole thing. They want to know how much you know, then after that they can teach you further. Terenoa?
Yes, sir.
All right, okay. So, Gimhani, you are there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, today you are very quiet. Is it raining in the Bandara Villa?
No, sir. I am on the way to Kegol now.
Okay, see that? I observe it that something is there. Okay, fine.
So I have a question. Say now the O-levels or the A-level exam, would it count as a proficiency test because you're not trying to correct? You're just trying to see. Okay.
It's a good question, but in the O-level, A-level exams, we don't teach them the whole language. Moreover, we are not testing the language in a proper way, because here in the O-level, A-level, we test only 2 skills, writing and reading.
Okay, sir.
Not the listening and speaking. So that's not a complete test. That is why no matter if the students have done their O-level, A-level from Cambridge syllabus, even they have to give the proficiency test in form of the IELTS, or in form of the Cambridge Advanced English, or in form of the Pearson teaching, the Pearson test for English, in order to go for a higher education to the different countries, or migration or work purposes. Okay, that's the reason, because O-level, mostly English is in the O-level, in the what is it, Cambridge and Pearson. A-level, very less students follow the English language. So that is not tested in all 4 forms. That is why it is not considered in that appropriate way of teaching of English, because only 2 skills are covered there. All right. So shall we go ahead after the proficiency? Now note it down here: diagnostic, placement test, progress test, summative test, and proficiency test are all example of formal testing. These all we are doing formal testing, we do through these tests. Okay, they are taken under exam-like conditions, with learners at their own desk, working silently within a time limit, consist of sets tasks for which a score is given and or administered by the teacher or an official. So that is exam-like condition, we take it, and that is called formal way of testing. There are many different tasks a teacher can use to assess her learners. For example, multiple choice questions, interviews, gap fill, table completion or listening, reading for specific information. The task as a teacher chooses to use for formal assessment depend on what aspect of language or skills the teacher wants to assess. Assessment tasks, now assessment tasks we are talking about, okay? And there are 2 kind of, one is objective, one is subjective. Try to understand that. Question comes about objective and subjective must in the paper. The difference between objective and subjective task is how much the marker needs to use their own judgment. Marker mean the one who is checking the paper, marking the paper. Right answer. In an objective task, the marker does not have to judge whether its answer is right or wrong and how right or how wrong the answer is. Because there is only one answer. Multiple choice, true, false, gap fills, and matching tasks are example of objective task. Now, in objective task, the one who is marking the paper, she or he does not have to use their own understanding. Why? Because only there is one answer. It might be a gap filling answer, multiple choice one, true, false. So either it will be false or either it will be right. So that is called objective task. Objective tasks mean the marker is not using their own judgment in it, their own understanding and observation about that, the performance of it. Okay. Opposite to it is the subjective task. Subjective task comes over here. That's further is the explanation of it. Subjective task is the marker needs to use their own judgment to decide if an answer is right or how right it is. Example subjective tasks are role plays, essays, interviews, gap discussion, composition. Now, for example, you are marking students writing. They have written an essay, or they have written a letter or a report, or they are performing something. So there is criteria is there, but there is no fixed one answer for it. So it depends on my judgment, how I judge them. I may judge in one way. I may give marks out of 10. I may give 8. There might be another teacher. She might give out of 10 7 marks. So that kind of thing, which is based on the judgment of a teacher, that is called subjective task. And where the teacher cannot use their judgment and they have to just tick mark the right answer, which is already one is given there. That is called objective. Is it clear? All right. And you know what happened? I am recording this whole, and during the recording, I went for a break and recording is on. I didn't pause it. So it is also going on recording. God. And I've been talking unnecessarily things also. That is also recorded. Oh God. It wasn't on my mind because some of them are absent. I have to send them the recording. All right. It's okay. They can forward it. Right. So subjective, objective, they are clear. So we will go to the next page. Detail of that you can go through and see. Okay. But the key point need to be clear in your mind. Right. These are how are some task type often used in formal assessment. They have given you in the reading, writing, listening, speaking, grammar, vocabulary, how you do the assessment. Okay. And what are the types of that which we can. So these are the examples of that which is given. You can make a list of it. You need to know, and what you need to learn out of it. You have to be clear. What is the task? What we do in it? So out of it, which something is not clear to you, check it in the glossary. You will find or Google it. You need to know that these different categories we do that testing. These different tasks are used for the different kind of assessment, and what are they? What we do in it. Unlike formal assessment, okay, now here we talk about, let me a little bit make it larger. Unlike formal assessment, informal assessment does not use assessment tasks and is rarely used to give the learners a grade, as it is not the purpose of informal assessment. It is also generally less reliable or accurate than formal assessment. Informal assessment can be carried out by the teacher or the learner. When carried out by the teacher, it is usually involve the teacher observing the learner and particularly learners to find out more about their level, attitude, and learners' characteristics. You know learners' characteristics. We have discussed a whole topic on it. Okay. Yes, Gimhani, I will send you the recording. No worries. Okay. Okay. So the informal way is based on the observation, as we do not assist them in the exam-like condition. All right, have a nice journey, safe journey at all, because from Bagula to Kagol, it's all twists and turns. So have a safe journey, Gimhani, and I will send you the recording, okay? So we were going to the next page, and let's see what's there. A teacher, come down a bit. A teacher might observe a class doing a group work, for example, to judge their general level of fluency, watch them doing project work, or see how motivated they are and how well they work together. Collaboration, working together. The teacher might also just focus on how a particular learner is getting on. Getting on means how their relation with each other is. Observing them as they do, for example, written work and pair work in class, the teacher could also checklist. This is all the types of thing which comes under the subjective task, where the teacher is doing the observation of the student. So which is not coming in the formal assessment, which comes in the informal way. So this you can go through that, nothing technical to understand in it. Just you need to go that how the process of informal assessment goes. Informal assessment is often used with young learners. We do it mostly with the young learners. Why? Because young learners, we do not want them to put into the exams and tests and all that. It's difficult for the children and they become under pressure. So the best option is to, in a free way, observe their performance, how well they are. Okay. So although we don't do in our primary system, we all, even the preschool, we are doing the test. We can see that informal assessment is formative. It provides the teacher with feedback that can feed into future teaching or could be used to give advice to learners on how to improve in future. Learners can also carry out informal assessment. Now, learners also do that. How? They can assess themselves, self-assessment, or one another, peer assessment, when one student observes the performance of other one. They can do this with checklists to guide them. The reason for using both peer and self-assessment is to help learners to understand their language use and performance better, and so become more autonomous. You give them some criteria for assessment, and then they say you check the performance of this student when they do, and you other one you, and then assess. You have given a criteria to check according to that. What happens with that? They become more autonomous, independent, you know, with that, and that use language in much better way, in that way to do the assessment. Informal assessment is often followed by a feedback from the teacher to the learners on the strength and weaknesses of their performance. You have to give a feedback to them, what areas they are weak at and what areas they are good at, okay, and how they need to improve. You have to give feedback. Is not only to point out weak areas, it's as well to find out the good, what are the areas they are good at, and the weak areas you need to tell them how to improve it. So you have to give them improvement plan also. Okay, it's not feedback is only which most of the teacher just doing that to point out what's wrong with the student. Right, you have to give solution to them how to improve that. When a teacher is assessing informally or using formal subjective tests, they often use assessment criteria to help with the assessment. These are the general features of skills which can be used as a basis for judging students' performance. For example, speaking involves sub-skills of, now when we are going to check the whatever sub-skills we are going to check or we are doing an assessment, so there is a criteria for it. Like for the spoken one, fluency is how, use of language is how, when they are speaking, use of language appropriately, interactive strategies are how, okay, how they are giving turn to each other and all that. Pronunciation is how, vocabulary range is what, basic, intermediate or advanced level vocabulary they are using. Discourse organization, whatever they are saying, the relevance of it to the topic, how they, so all these things are assessed when they are doing the speaking test, which we do in the Cambridge, and these all criteria are checked in. The teacher can use these sub-skills for some of them depending on the level of the class, criteria against which to judge their learner speaking. At beginner or low levels of teacher might want to just use pronunciation and vocabulary range as assessment criteria in the school test. This is what is the further explanation of it, nothing much. You can go through that to just make yourself understand. Examination point of view, what you have to give, what is formative assessment, what is summative assessment, what is formal, what is informal, and each assessment, diagnostic, this thing, the difference between that, okay? That is the thing you need to keep in mind. Subjective, objective approach, this is examination point of view things. And this assessment, peer assessment, self-assessment, you need to be clear about it, okay? Because they might give you, a student is doing this, another student is giving the feedback, what is it called? Okay, so this sort of thing you need to give the answer. Further, you can go through this just to make yourself a little bit more clear about this topic. Assessment 1, there is not much technical thing compared to the unit 15, 16 and 17. That's why I'm not going in detail for that. Self-explanatory. Okay, below is an example of some assessment criteria for speaking. A range is set by, you can see accuracy, fluency, pronunciation, then all the categories they have mentioned, how to check it and how it is. There is marks for that also. 0.5 marks are given, and then in the end all the 0.5 are collected and seen that how is their overall performance for the speaking one. This particular bands cover a wide range of ability. This is talking about the band which they have. When working with a particular class, it may be more useful for the teachers to work with a narrower range. The bands could be used to formal assessment and speaking, or to help the teacher carry and inform. Informal assessment is sometimes used to assess student behavior, attitude, learner characteristics rather than their language abilities. So informal assessment, main point which is here, it is to check the student's attitude, abilities, characteristics, not the language performance. Language performance we check in the formal assessment. Here we mostly check it in the informal assessment, their attitude, behavior, characteristics towards how they perform. So that we check. This is the point to be noted here. Okay. Now in the, it means like motivation, degree of participation in the group work, type of learning styles, etc. Right. Is it clear up to now? I hope today's class is a little bit lengthy, but I hope you can go on with that, right? Sachi? Sachi, why your hand is totally different color? All have
So
yellow.
I wanted to, you know, make it customized to my skin color. So that's why.
So you mean that others are yellow?
No, sir, they haven't customized it. I like all my emojis to be like brown color because it feels like I'm personally involved.
All right. Okay, fine. Yeah, one of our colleague previously working with us, she passed away today. God bless her soul. with the corona, a very young, beautiful girl. So just I'm getting the messages, but I know it about some 2-3 hours before. Yeah, very young girl, 35 to 40 years old, and very beautiful, Manuri. And my colleague previously, now it's a sad situation that in this corona cases we can't go for the funeral even. So God bless her soul. Right. So where were we now? Key concept in the teaching classroom. Okay. You all are fresh, right? Morale is up. Sujika?
Of course.
All right. Brown Sachi? I will call you Brown Sachi.
Sure, sir.
Okay. So let's go to this last segment of the class. Assessment can affect what we teach, how we teach, and our learners' motivations for learning. These areas. What we teach, how we teach, and our learners' motivation for learning. This is the area which we do the assessment. Assessment is not only that paperwork. So you have to a little bit broader your understanding of assessment. Okay. It is very important for test to have a good influence on teaching and learning. And assessment actually it gives a very good influence on teaching and learning, but mostly we try to put the assessment is what to find faults with the students and make circles and all that, okay, and cut marks from them. So only give the marks to those who are our favorites. That's kind of things are also happening in the schools, right? Some teachers are having the favorites, so the favorites are doing a mistake, so that is okay. But if another one is done, she's very much sharp in cutting the marks from them. Some assessment tasks are easy to write. For example, essay titles or mark, e.g. categorizing tasks, but we need to check if they reflect what we have taught. It is not a good idea to use a particular testing task just because it's easy to use or easy to mark. For example, for administrative reasons, it is often difficult to assess learners' speaking. So speaking is so often not assessed. And as a result, learners may start thinking that speaking isn't important. Speaking skills can be sometimes be more easily assessed informally than formally. Sometime, but if you get into the proper assessment criteria of the Cambridge, so in our exams, we have speaking examiners. I'm myself the speaking examiner for the advanced level. So we assess their performance when they speak, and there is a criteria for it. But generally, for the speaking, the criteria is not there known to the common people. So when somebody speak English, they cannot understand that this English is at what level. There might be a very low level English, but the person might be speaking in a twisted kind of accent to impress the other people. So they might be thinking generally that person English is very good. Actually, if you see the criteria words that what's the level of language, it might be only the words pronunciation might be okay. But variety of using English language, vocabulary, level of the vocabulary, the discourse management of the language, okay, all these things when you check it, and the pace of speaking and all this, when you check it, it may not be at the standard level. So that is why commonly people, their criteria of speaking is one way, but actually when you see from the scale point of view, there is a criteria for it, but it's not known to everyone. That's the problem. So this is what they're talking over here. To really reflect the level of learners learning, the content and tasks included in progress and summative tests should reflect the content and tasks in our teaching. This may mean that our test includes mixture of objective and subjective tasks, and it is there. Like when we make the paper, so it is not all objective, or it's not all subjective. There is writing activities also, but there is gap filling activities also. Okay, so it is mixture of that. Assessment needs to be fair. This means that the progress and summative tests should only test what has been taught, and they should be reliable and accurate in their marking. Using bands to help us mark subjective tasks helps achieve this. So it should be fair in a way to be tested in the area they are taught. It should not be given something out of the syllabus which they are still not taught about. Okay. Feedback to learners only on what they got right or wrong, their strengths and weaknesses, and what they can do to improve is very important. Through feedback, assessment helps learning. This is what we discussed before. The same thing, like we need to give them feedback on their strength and their weaknesses and their way of improving, how they have to improve that. Right. Informal assessment is often much more suitable for assessing young learners than formal assessment. It's because we do not want the children, small children, to get into the test process. So in a lot of countries like Japan, Singapore, these Scandinavian countries, they don't do the assessment of the small one, and in the primary, the test they have totally removed. They do the performance-based assessment there. So that's a method which is used for them rather than putting the small children in the test. Some may be good, some may not be good. So it's not necessarily that that's the true picture of a child's ability it shows to you. And you know this in Sri Lanka, this grade 5 exam for the scholarship, oh God bless, it is not, mostly it's not the children they call it exam test, but it is the parents test, and the parents are in the competition with that. I mean, that much it is, so it needs to be changed, but who is going to do that? All right, this is because young learners' ways of thinking and learning are based on experiencing and communicating. What's the reason that they don't put the test, formal testing in the small one? Because their way of learning is on experiencing and communicating. That is how they are taught in the TPR method. If you see in 15, that is especially for the young learners. All right, so that's their way. Physical respond to the teaching, and that's how they are taught also. And also because teachers of young learners are often interested in finding out more about their learners' attitudes, motivation, and behaviors. That's what is the important thing to improve in the small children, rather than memorizing for the test. So we are depending mostly on memorizing for the test rather than improving their performance, their attitude, you know, their motivation. These are the things totally unknown to us, even not only in the young learners, in the school also, nobody teaches these things. Only subject matter, they need to get good marks. The rest, what type of character it is, what's the attitude towards the learning, nobody bothers these things. In your school, several classes follow the same syllabus and course book and do the same subjective, partly subjective test. It is useful for the teachers to use the same assessment criteria and bands. It may be useful to agree that marks you would give to some samples of students writing before marking starts. Even then, there may be disagreements amongst teachers at this point. It is useful to discuss exactly what the bands mean. The process helps marking before fairer and more reliable. So in the subjective one, it should be in order to, why? Because as I told you, one teacher might be giving 8 out of 10. Another teacher for the same writing, they may give 6 out of 10 or 7 out of 10. So they say the teachers need to discuss this. Like for example, there is one class and that class has 5 sections or 4 sections, and there are 2 different teachers are teaching there, but the paper is same for the whole. So definitely the classes one teacher is teaching, she may give for the essay, same essay marking one way, and another teacher who is teaching the other classes, she may give in a different way. So they say in this case, the teachers need to discuss about the subjective tasks in the papers and criteria and clear the bands how they have to give for writing, how they have to write. They have to talk to each other and finalize it in order to make it more fairer. Is that clear? If there are teachers for one particular level, 2 different teachers or 3 different teachers, they are going to mark the paper. Working with assessment criteria and bands helps the teacher grade all students against the same level of achievement. This can help the teachers and the students to know more about their real level ability, and their teachers should rank the students according to their. Now, assessment criteria should be there. What is assessment criteria? If you are marking a paper, what are the things you have to check in it? Vocabulary marking should be done how, punctuation should be done how, okay, clean, legible writing should be, which is clear to understand, should be done, how many marks can be given. So minimum and maximum marks, that division of the criteria should be clearly there. So the teacher also knows easily how to mark it. The student also can assess that why their marks are deducted, why they are penalized for particular things of doing mistakes. So when there is a no criteria there, then it depends on the will-wish of each teacher how to give the marks. So that's what they are telling. There should be a assessment criteria. So that's it for today. And we completed 18 units. 1 unit is remaining, phonology, which we will discuss next week. Okay. And whatever other, we will have a little bit more time. So if you people have any kind of question regarding the rest of the lessons, units which we have done, please go through that, because you're going to go for the exams on 15th of August. And those who are going to do the exam in Candy Center, send me your names. The rest who are not in the Candy, definitely they have to do in Colombo Center. Okay. So timetable and the instruction for the examination, your registration, all these things, the COVID declaration form, everything we will send you by next week, most probably, or maybe this weekend, so you can fill it up and bring it with you. All right. Sachi, where do you live?
So I live in Panipitia.
Pannipitia?
Yes, that's in Colombo.
In our backyard?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I thought you were from far away. You just live in our backyard. Okay,
Yes.
Pannipitia is just behind Dilkanda. So we are at Dilkanda. Anyhow. So these things I will send you by most probably tomorrow. I will try to send it to you. Okay. And anything you want to ask, prepare it and let me know by next week on Thursday. And after that, we will do a little bit practice of what is it? Papers. But each unit end, do the follow-up activity and do the TKT practice task. And when you complete the whole, there is one paper complete in the book. Do that also. Check your answers and keep that. Do the paper 1 hour 20 minutes time. Fix it and do the paper. In like exam kind of condition. It's not that somebody's coming and talking to you, you stop the paper and they go after a while you again started. No, not like that. Lock the door, sit there, do the exam, 1 hour 20 minutes paper, and then check yourself how it is. All right. All right.
Okay, sir.
Wait, I have to stop that recording. God, I don't know, this recording has gone for 2 hours or 3 hours.